Welcome to the Legal Navigator Podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca from Law Training Centre. Today we'll be touching on the topic, legal careers qualifying without a law degree. If you come from a non-legal background or you don't have a law degree but are interested in starting a career in law, stay tuned to discover various alternative routes in the legal profession. We are also very delighted to have a few amazing guest speakers joining us today, each bringing their own distinct insights and experiences in the legal field.
So hi guys. So it would be great if you could all just give further information about your current role and basically just your journey to get in there. So we start off with Laura, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. So I started off working in my previous firm as a secretary, and then I decided to change firms because they were slightly more modern with various different technology and different qualification routes that I could go down that they supported. So when I changed firm, I then began my training route with LTC, and I started off as a PA and then progressed to a conveyancing executive whilst during my studies. And now I'm a licensed conveyancer today. I've gone sort of from the bottom and worked my way up. And I really thought that working alongside doing the exams was really beneficial because you can experience all of the different aspects of law and put into practice what you're learning.
Great. So what was the exact motivation going through the CLC route? So you could have gone through like the LPC, qualify as a solicitor, and then obviously practice as a conveyancing solicitor. What was the particular inspiration or motivation with choosing the CLC route over a more traditional pathway?
I loved the opportunity that it's flexible. So during COVID, I was furloughed with my firm, and that was a real opportunity as we couldn't do much else. But if I did other routes, then sometimes they only have exam sittings in January and June, and therefore I would have been a bit more stuck with sort of timings. So it was really good that I could revise and then just enter the exam when I was ready, which was a great opportunity.
Great. So Sarah, is it okay if you go next just to tell our listeners about your current role and the pathway you took into the legal field?
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently an associate at Hodge Jones and Allen in their personal injury team. My journey kind of started by accident, to be honest. I did an English degree and was going to do further study in that area, but it really wasn't financially viable. And I fell into a temp job at the Crown Prosecution Service, and the whole atmosphere I just found fascinating. The work itself was pretty mundane. There was a lot of photocopying, a lot of filing, but just being in that atmosphere I just found really interesting. So when that contract ended, I just thought I needed another job in law. Given that I didn't have I had no legal qualifications, it was just a matter of getting my foot in the door somewhere. And that's when Hodge Jones and Allen came along. I started out, it'll be 12 years ago in November, as a legal assistant. So again, photocopying, lots of filing, but it allowed me to get that background and focus on my studies. So I progressed to being a paralegal. I did 2 different paralegal roles in the department, one managing a caseload of sort of low value road traffic accident claims, and then moved on to assisting the partners with their higher value and catastrophic work before I managed to qualify about getting on for 3 years ago now. And now I run a caseload of about 70 to 80 claims, whole mixture of different types of claims, different types of accidents. And yeah, that method suited me down to the ground.
So you did mention, you started off with an English degree, just wanted to get your foot into the door. Could you talk through the initial application stages when you were applying for law firms? Were there any particular challenges coming from like a non-law degree background?
So many of them wanted some kind of law degree, legal qualification, especially at the paralegal level. I think things have changed substantially since I was looking. To overcome it was just a matter of keep applying, keep trying. I sent my CV to numerous firms near me, just shoved it through the door and said, basically, I'll do. Didn't say I'll do anything because that's not wildly professional, but that was kind of the idea. I went to several secretarial interviews as well because I thought if I could just, again, typing, get my foot in the door. It was just a matter of keep trying until I got the interview and started at HJA.
Fantastic. So since qualifying, obviously through the Silex route, what significant advantages have you seen?
The main thing for me was the fact that you can work alongside your studies. I think that for me, understanding why I was doing certain tasks made them easier to do. And, my studies enabled me to do that. So I understood if someone said, I don't know, put together this bundle for the court, it wasn't just finding the documents and putting them together. I knew why the documents needed to be in there. And that obviously helps you do your job better if you know where it fits into the process and why you're doing it.
Great. Of course, Louise, it would be great if you could just tell us a bit more about your current role and just explain the pathway that you've taken into law.
Like Sarah, I fell into law by accident. I was a PA to a chartered surveyor, and when that job expectedly came to an end, I had to find a job fast. So just put my CV out and started at a big law firm as just a part-time receptionist on holiday cover. 10 years later, I was still there as a legal secretary. And I found a love of probate. I liked the family and the history which went with it, and also I'm a bit of a geek and I like figure work and maths and things as well. Strange, I know, but there you go. And one of the partners noticed that I had a flair for probate and asked if I would be interested in training under their scheme at the time to take on my level 3s. So I just jumped at the chance. I was in my late 40s, so I was quite late to start. And then I did leave my recent law firm and move to where I am now because I just like the smaller practice. So I looked for another job and found my new job where I am now as a fee earner in my own right within the firm, supervised by my boss, obviously. But yes, that's how I found it. So I literally just limped along in life, but literally found my niche later on. I'm very happy.
So just for those who want to start off later on, it would be interesting to know if there were any particular challenges that you faced, like joining so late on in your career. Was there anything stood out to you or hindered you, or was just a general challenge?
I don't think there were any hindrances, but sometimes with the larger law firm, I did notice perhaps a little bit of discrimination against age. But as for the learning process, I haven't found anything. It doesn't matter what age you hit it at. There's a brain that works in there. And if you want to use it, it's capable of doing. And I think you've got less distractions as you're older in life. Your family's grown up, so you can concentrate that little bit better.
Sarah, you touched on something, the financial aspect of it all, it being financially viable to do the Silex route. I was just wondering for Louise and Laura, was affordability a deciding factor with your career and education choice?
So when I was at my previous law firm, I started off doing the Silex route to become a paralegal. But when I left that firm, I did have to pay it back as part of my contract. So then when I moved to Codes, my current firm, I decided that I'd fund it myself, because then if you ever did decide to move on, you haven't got that sort of tie or unexpected repayment. So that's sort of, my funding side of it, that I found it was more beneficial to do it yourself if you can. But I know a lot of firms do offer training contracts that are great. So there are pros and cons of both of it, really.
What about you, Louise?
Cost was an implication for me because I'm a single income person. So obviously trying to find the money to fit around it. That's why I found Law Training Centre very easy to deal with, because the instalment process helped me immensely. And without that, I wouldn't have been able to proceed with my new level 3s, which I had to fund myself. So that was instrumental in me actually being with Law Training Centre as well. Helped me a lot.
It's interesting to know, just because on a daily basis, we do get a lot of learners who inquire about the financial aspects. So you have to take into consideration the cost of living has gone up, law school fees have gone up. So that's why we're just trying to make it a bit more accessible to everyone. So we've developed like scholarships and, like you rightfully said, flexible installment plans to help with it as well. But glad to see that it was very useful for you, Louise. Just to touch on the actual online learning process. I know, Sarah, you studied through distance learning with Silex. Could you explain why you chose this mode of learning and elaborate on your actual experience with that?
Yeah, when I sort of realised that I really needed some kind of legal qualification to sort of support what the role I wanted, I did consider the GDL to convert to a law degree. But at that point, I was not completely sure that law was something I wanted to do. So another year of full-time study and the financial commitment was a commitment that I wasn't sort of completely sure on. So the great thing about Silex was it offered me that flexibility that I could sort of commit to 1 or 2 modules at a time. So I did it through Silex Law School. So you would sign up for however many modules you wanted to commit to at that time. And you would then have 18 months to take and pass the exam. So what it meant was if I was going through a particularly busy period, I could say, right, okay, I'm only going to do one module this time. And it really helped sort of fit round. And the more I studied, the more I realized, actually, no, this is what I want to do. So, and it spread the cost as well.
So, Laura, you've done online learning with us. Could you just talk through what was your experience with online learning and how exactly did it accommodate like work-life balance, for example? What advantages did you find in it?
So I did, the online learning with LTC. We had an app as well, a Moodle app, which was really good. You've got it on your iPad or your phone, so you can look at your materials anywhere. It was great to be able to balance work-life because you don't have the exam deadline. So yeah, like I said, you could enter whenever you're ready. Also, the online tutors, they were so helpful. If you've ever got questions or queries, they're always there. Working day or night, I found they'd always come back to you whenever they were available to help you with any queries you had. It is hard to balance work and studies, but that's definitely challenging. But it's just making the time and finding the time and just a dedication to do it really is really what you need.
Yeah, of course. Louise, could you elaborate on your experience of online education and how it's like contributed to your professional development?
Well, working in the field and studying at the same time, it was like Sarah said earlier, you can literally work out why you're doing something. And I think you do learn much quicker and much better if you know why you're doing something in the first place. So I agree with Sarah on that. As for online learning, literally, like Laura says, you can fit it round what you're doing. So if you have a tough day, like I've had a tough day sometimes with my 83-year-old mother who needs a little bit of extra care, I can put off my studies for a few days, do them early in the morning, late at night, whenever I've got time, rather than trying to fit it in with a law school. So online education for me has been a godsend.
And you've all managed to balance your studies pretty well. So I was wondering if you guys could share any tips or strategies for individuals who are considering online or distance education. How can they make the most out of their learning experience?
I think my biggest piece of advice would be to maybe sort of don't be too hard on yourself. You will have days when you will have a long day at work and you'll think and you plan to study or plan to get something done and you just can't. Don't force yourself. The whole advantage of distance learning is it fits in around you. So don't sort of let that guilt about not studying, which I think is probably a hangover from sort of traditional education, not having done your homework or whatever. But don't let that become distracting and disheartening. You make it work for you and you'll get so much more out of it.
It's pretty good, Sarah. So Laura, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Sarah, exactly what she said. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. But I did find if you had a calendar, put the days down and made a routine of when you were going to study and the hours you were going to put in and tried to stick to it, then at least you had some sort of structure. But yeah, if you did have a really long day or you just needed a break, there's no point trying to overdo it because you're probably not going to take it in. So yeah, that's important.
Great. So Louise, do you have anything to add?
I agree with both Laura and Sarah. Don't be hard on yourself. Just fit it in when you've got time and just pace yourself. And if something happens, if you're trying too hard, just step away from it and walk back and have another go at a later time when not so much is going on in life. And that's the beauty of the online distance learning.
Great. So I wanted to touch on work experience because work experience is a crucial element for most of these pathways, namely Silex, CLC. So we know that work experience is very crucial because it gives you not only insight into the legal profession, but it helps you build on crucial skills and enhances your competitiveness in the overall field. But so beyond education, how did you gain your practical experience and exposure into the legal field to complement your studies? Like just for people who are, at that stage where they need that practical work experience, they just don't know how to get it. They're not getting any luck. Do you guys have any tips on how people can get practical work experience?
Personally, I've seen a lot of legal professionals come up right through the ranks in the larger firms, from starting off even in the warehouse, the storage where you're looking after deeds and files, because there's all sorts of information you can glean from those while putting them away. Being on reception, you're picking up things, you're listening. So if you've got an attentive ear and a bit of note taking, there's a lot you can learn just from being in that environment.
So Sarah, do you have any tips on how someone can get work experience?
I think it's just a matter of getting out there. Obviously, it's quite different. I've been at my firm a very long time now. At that point, it was just a matter of, as I said, going to your local solicitors firms, putting your CV through the door, being willing to take on, just as Louise said, any task. The work I did at the CPS was not, on the face of it, particularly interesting. As I said, it was a lot of filing, it was a lot of photocopying. But just being in that atmosphere and listening to people and talking to people about, why you're doing what you're doing was fascinating and really interesting. So it's just a matter of being willing. Another route would be potentially get in touch with maybe the Citizens Advice Bureau, various charities. We do a lot of work with charities. If you wanted to volunteer for one of those, you can make contacts that way. We work with Child's Brain Injury Trust, Break, which is a charity that helps people who have injured in road accidents. So sort of looking around for alternative routes that way might be a good way to make contacts.
Right. Excellent tips from Sarah and Louise there. Laura, did you want to add any other advice on how people can get work experience?
As Louise said, going into a firm as a receptionist, you pick up so much just answering the phone calls, different departments, different terminology. That's a really good starting point. And then it might even sort of point you in the direction that you want to go with law, and what department you want to really enjoy working with.
Right. So on a similar level, in terms of networking is crucial again in the legal industry because it obviously helps you build connections. Through networking, most people actually get their first job. And obviously it can help you facilitate knowledge, sharing amongst professionals. In your opinion, would you agree that networking is advantageous to succeed in the legal industry?
Yeah, I would say it is now for me personally, having my own caseload now, being a fee earner. I'm head of the new build department. So obviously to get good contact is great now. When you're starting off, I wouldn't say it's so beneficial, but definitely as you progress and qualify, when you're reliant on different contacts. So for me, estate agents or development sites for new build houses, it's great networking. Yeah, definitely.
What about you, Sarah? Would you say networking is beneficial?
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Like I've already said, we do a lot of work with charities, just getting your name out there, meeting people. It is important to develop new work and to also to develop your own profile. If people know who you are, they'll think maybe to recommend a client or something like that. So yeah, it is really important.
So in you guys' opinion, where do you see the landscape of non-traditional legal careers evolving in the coming years?
When I started, there was one other legal executive or someone who was studying to become a legal executive at the firm. Now in my department, there are 3 qualified legal executives and another 2 going that route. And that's just one department in one firm. More and more often now, you're getting email replies from someone with Silex after their name or some other route. And I think the amount it's changed in the 10 years since I've been studying, 10, 12 years since I've been studying, it's only going to get more and more common as people, and I think COVID has changed a lot of people's views of learning. You no longer have to go to a university or a law school. So much is online now, and the online experience has improved so much. I mean, when I started, we used to get a big binder full of paper. That was our course material. But now it's all online. So, and I think that has changed hugely, and I think it will only continue.
I I agree, because from my experience when I was in university, there was only literally two pathways they told you could do once you qualify with your law degree. That's either solicitors or a barrister, and that was it. But since coming out and over the recent years, there's definitely been a lot more exposure into different alternative routes. I mean, even if you take the SRA's approach, they're now broadening it up to SQE, where you could just have a degree in any subject or level 6 equivalent qualifications and do it. So it's going to attract more people not coming through that whole traditional pipeline. But that's interesting thought. Laura, did you want to add anything before we move on?
Yeah, just really that obviously the online way is so flexible. Like you say, you don't have to be sat in a classroom, you don't have to go to university. So I really think that it's only going to fly, this way of working, really.
So I wanted to know from you guys, what is the most rewarding and satisfying aspect of your legal career so far? So if we start with you, Laura.
So qualifying was a huge milestone for me because that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to become a licensed conveyancer. I don't intend to do any more exams. I'm happy where I am. But I also was put forward to win the Today's Conveyancer of the Year award in 2021 across the UK, and I won. So yeah, that was huge.
Brilliant. Yeah.
That's probably the two biggest things.
So Sarah, what was the most rewarding and satisfying aspect in your career so far?
I think it's tricky to sort of put one event. I mean, my graduation and my qualification was huge. My graduation was delayed. I actually qualified in September 2020, but didn't get to do the sort of formal graduation until the following year. So that felt much bigger because of that delay. But just on a day-to-day basis, just getting results for my clients, regardless of the amount of money they ultimately receive, it's incredibly satisfying to know that you are making a difference to people who have had their lives affected by these injuries, and to just be able to do something small to be able to put them back on the road to recovery is immensely satisfying.
Definitely. And Louise, do you want to share any rewarding or satisfying moments?
Well, getting my diploma last week was a big milestone for me, but as Sarah says, it's what you can do for your clients as well, so you can go home at the end of the day knowing you've done a good job. Definitely. One little particular story I can pick out is recently telling a family of 4 that were really, really struggling, that they'd been left a property, some money to them in the will, and that they could move in straight away. So they literally went from rented accommodation to nothing to just being sorted, and it was just a nice feeling. So yes, what we can do, as I say, as Sarah says, what you can do for your clients, you go home at the end of the day and you've got that satisfaction. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, that's really great, and thanks for sharing that, Louise, that example. Just to follow on that, Sarah and Laura, do you have any particularly memorable or impactful experience from your journey so far?
I think one that sticks out for me is the first time I went to a trial. I was asked to help out at a 5-day trial at the High Court in London. So the big building you see on the TV. And it was a culmination of years and years, a case that had been running years and years and years for a client with a very severe brain injury. And to see all of that work come to fruition and to have the case go in our favour was really memorable, because so few of the cases actually get that far. So yeah, that's an experience that really sticks out.
What about you, Laura?
So I'm in property, so it might not be quite as exciting as Sarah and Louise. Just helping first-time buyers really buy their first house, getting on the ladder, seeing them excited when we exchange and complete. Really great to see how far they've come, and to explain the process to them as well, because at the start it's all very daunting, and to guide them through it is a real it's lovely to see.
Great. And just the last question for you all, what specific thing do you enjoy the most about in your current work, and how has it fulfilled your career aspirations? Just that one thing that you enjoy the most. Sarah, do you want to start?
It all comes back to helping clients, really. I'm dealing with injured people. You can't heal them. You're not a doctor, but you can get them access to treatment. You can get them the financial means to fund treatment and sort of get their lives back on track, which is really, really satisfying. And ultimately the amount of the award doesn't really matter if it helps that client put their life back on track. I always say I don't want repeat clients, because people come to me, they've had an accident or they've been injured. I don't want to see them again, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. So to be able to sort of say goodbye to a client, hopefully permanently, is really good.
So Louise, do you have anything to add before we move on?
I think my love of figure work and just meeting people has helped me blossom. As you can tell, I'm a bit chatty, and I do try to put my clients relaxed. They see a legal professional for the first time. Some of them are a bit daunted, but yes, if I can put them at ease, then I've done my job.
That's brilliant. So thank you guys all for listening. That was really fantastic.
Thank you for tuning into the Legal Navigator podcast. We hope you found today's episode informative and engaging. If you have any questions or need more information, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can send us an email to info@ltckent.com or visit our website at ltckent.co.uk. Until next time, stay tuned for more episodes.